Good morning or evening, listeners. The date is December 3rd that we are recording this. This is our second take going through this. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll see that we had some tech issues. Think we've resolved them. We're pretty sure
Fingers crossed.
we've resolved them.
I'm so sick of tech issues.
Dude, yeah. Anyway, let's do this. Welcome to Talk About Tatooine. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are twin brothers here to bring you what's new in nerddom and give colorful commentary on our favorite subjects. Welcome to our cantina. Grab a drink and settle in as we set course for reality beyond our own. What are you drinking?
So today I am just drinking my coffee, but out of our new Irish coffee mugs. But there's no Irish in this coffee because we wouldn't get anything done.
You know, I smacked my computer and it stopped working and I didn't really know why.
Hit it with me hammer.
I was doing some troubleshooting, so I brought out my trusty bucket killer and I shut my computer, and now I'm just in trouble.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I am getting to the point where I am going to shoot my computer because we had a USB port randomly die on it the other day, so that was fun. So I had to replug everything in. So actually I had two USB ports die. So I'm running out of USB ports, so I almost need to get a second extender, because over to my right, which is your left, I have one of my usable USB ports leading to an extender, so it has 4 extra from that one. And I've got my Xbox controller adapter, there we go, my mouse, and my now, as of 30 minutes ago as well, because I was doing camera troubleshooting before you got here, I have my camera plugged into it as well. So we're running out of slots to put stuff. So
you should throw that last USB port a pizza party.
I don't get it.
Because it's working hard, but you're not going to pay it any extra. Capitalism is so funny.
It is. So in today's episode, guys, we are going to be talking about Andor's episode 7 through 9, which is Announcement in Arcana 5 and Nobody's Listening. We're going to do just a quick summary of kind of a little dramatic reading of everything that we've kind of gone over really quick. Then we're going to dive Then we're going to dive right into it, because this is actually our second time recording it, so we don't necessarily want to take a bunch of time doing it, because we're going to knock out a bunch of recordings today, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
All right, the raid on Aldhani is complete. Andor escapes with only a portion of the raiding crew. The Empire moves quickly to squash this rebellion and increase their grip on the sectors under their control. ISB Supervisor Deidre Marrow starts to see the rebel web for what it is and begins to put crucial information together on the whereabouts of our protagonist. Disgraced Inspector Cyril seeks to hunt down Cassian, and his path begins to drift towards the ISB. Meanwhile, Cassian Andor is picked up and imprisoned for fraudulent charges on anti-imperial motives for a foreign world. Now imprisoned, Cassian makes new allies in the factory prison, quite possibly the most dangerous place for our rising rebel hero. Meanwhile, we have different rebel dealings playing themselves out in the Senate with Mon Mothma. We see the rebellion start to blossom in different ways on vastly different battlefields. Let's dive right into these next few episodes and see what our heroes and villains find themselves in this web of espionage and rebellion. This series has gotten better. It's aging like fine whiskey and wine. I really did not have high hopes for the peak of episode 6. When they completed the raid, I was like, surely this is going to go downhill from here. And it didn't. It just got better and better and better. I was a little disappointed when Andor first got captured, because I was like, seriously, he just got out of the heist and then he just gets picked up randomly by just a bunch of scumbag Imperials. I was like, this is stupid. And then it immediately got good. Very, very good. So that was awesome to hear.
Yeah, that one really surprised me as well, when Andor immediately gets picked up for literally doing nothing.
Very anti-imperial of him.
But the thing is, yeah, anti-imperial sentiment, trying to escape or resist arrest and all these different charges. I'm like, at that point, they must just be picking up literally anyone they can get their hands on. Also, maybe they saw him and were like, you look like you would be a good worker, and that's why they picked him up. We don't see that actually confirmed, but that seems to be kind of what happens. Is they're like, yeah, you're going to do nicely. Put him in the mines.
Pretty much. Right now, we have kind of a complex web of different storylines, and we're starting to see all of those start to converge now in these next 3 episodes, and all the way through the season finale as well. Do you want to just go over and cover kind of what kind of different pairings of characters we've got going on right now?
Yes, we have several different plot lines and story arcs, or I should say character arcs going on. And the first one we kind of are looking at is Cassian and his relationship with Bix. We see Cassian returns to Ferrix and immediately pays off his debt, which ironically puts Bix in a lot of danger because there's so much surveillance. They find out that Andor had been to Bix's, and they immediately pick her up. We see, and this immediately entangles Bix back into the main story arc, and most likely setting up a pull-in for Cassian after his current arc. We also have Mon Mothma and Vel. We find out that they're actually related. So remember that Mon Mothma is the senator on Coruscant who has the awful husband and kind of an awful daughter and really kind of an awful life. We kind of feel for her. I mean, she's like uber rich, and I'm like, no, her life sucks. It's not great. And then we remember that Vel is actually the leader of the Aldani rebel cell that takes on the garrison.
Love Vel. She's a fun character.
She's awesome. She is her. Well, this might. Sorry, real quick. Have you seen the finale at this point?
Yes, I have seen the finale at this point. So since we are re-recording this, I'm actually going to trash most of my predictions because I'm like, I've already seen it all. So
yeah, it'll be a little bit shorter of a podcast. I mean, our first recording was pretty long.
It was like an hour 45, I think.
That's so long. Okay, that's probably good for everyone. They don't want to. I don't know if our listeners want to hear two people with nearly identical voices talking to each other.
And I don't want to edit it all.
I don't do anything. I just post on Twitter.
Hey, somebody's got to do it.
That I have no segue back into our current. What were we talking about? Vel. We're talking about Vel. Vel is really interesting because she absolutely believes in the cause, and to the point where she gave up she went from riches to rags and literally was like living and sleeping on the dirt of Aldani for probably a long time.
Yeah, they did a lot of reconnaissance there, so she's given up quite a bit.
She's given up pretty much everything and really risked her entire livelihood for the sake of the rebellion. But we also see her really struggle with her relationship with Cinta because she loves Cinta, but Cinta will put the mission first. That's why when we see on the raid to Aldani, when Vel kind of freezes when she's with Cinta, Cinta really is like, you have to go now.
Yeah.
And like really just like makes her stay on mission. I think there's going to be a lot of friction in that relationship, which stinks because I really like both of them. And
yeah, they're both compelling characters. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think their differences in priorities, I think, are going to cause some friction for sure.
Yeah.
We also have Miro and Cyril. So Dedra Miro, my first note is fascist, gonna fash.
Yep, very, very fashy.
But Cyril is weird. For having such an unlikable name, he has a weirdly likable backstory. Sorry, I'm a big Archer fan. So
Cyril Figgis, reporting for duty.
Yeah. He's got a weirdly likable backstory.
He is weirdly likable, but he's annoying because he's like the bad guy, but you're also like, oh, your life sucks, so we kind of like you.
Yeah, we see more of his interactions with his mother and their oddly infuriating conversation of a brown suit. I'm so sorry for the people who out there who have mothers or people like this in their life that just like, oh, this seemingly inconsequential decision you make, it actually matters more than you think. This is why people have crippling anxiety. So it's shocking that Cyril is really a functioning human being at all. It just stinks that he's like, okay, but I'm going to be I'm gonna choose to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And what he's choosing order and his version of justice over freedom and actual morality. So it kind of goes back to the thing of legality does not equal morality. We see this in the Holocaust, unfortunately. A lot of the persecution of the Jewish people in World War II was technically legalized by Germany. And that's like the most extreme example I can think of. But legality does not equal morality. But Cyril thinks it does, and that's why we see him be such a huge proponent of the imperial way.
Absolutely. We also get to see some fun characters rejoin the series in a little bit more of get a little bit more screen time as well. One of my favorites being Saw Gerrera. Now, originally when you meet the character in Saw Gerrera, my first experience with him was in, I want to say, it was either Rogue One or Rebels. I can't remember. I think it was Rebels, because he comes out in Rogue One, and then you see him appear in Rebels, Clone Wars, and now Andor. So he's in a lot of different things. And at first he's like very much an extremist, like his interactions with Ezra Bridger are really like, he's like kind of the bad good guy. He's an anti-hero basically, because he is in every form of the word, if you're taking it from the Imperial perspective, a terrorist. So, but he's also a terrorist against the Imperials. So you're like, he's definitely a necessary evil to the cause, even though the rebels are like, hey, we don't want to associate with you, but we do get to see him interact with Luthen quite a bit. So we do get to see that seedier, even more extreme side of the rebels, because Luthen is saying like, hey, we need to win this, and we're not gonna he's not worrying about taking the moral high ground at this point. I think he's really just leaving that up to Mothma. I think he's gonna say, you go do your thing and like ride the higher path, while the rest of us are gonna be doing exactly what needs to be done to get this done. And so that way they can kind of fight on both fronts.
For sure. We see two different main goals of those who participate in the Rebel Alliance. We see the destruction of the Empire, and that is their complete motivation. And then we see the resurrection of the Republic, which is a similar goal with a lot of similar causes, but it greatly changes the behaviors involved. So we see those who are only interested in the downfall of the Empire, like Saw Gerrera. That's all they care about. They're like, our goal is not to necessarily restore what once was good. Our goal is to destroy that. His goal is to destroy that which is evil at any cost.
Yeah, and then after that, he's like, they don't really ever say if he's down with the plan. He's pretty outspoken that he doesn't care for, whatever the Republic was, because he saw that the Republic turned into the Empire, and he's like, okay, cool. Once the Empire's gone, we're just going to decide to live our own lives. So we've got a lot of different kind of story arcs going on, and it's very obvious that all of these arcs are going to be leading together. If we were to go into a rating for these 3 episodes, I absolutely loved it. This was probably my favorite 3-episode story arc of the entire series, mostly just because I love prison break stories. I think they're super fun, and I loved the Imperial aesthetic, because even though it's a prison, it's still super clean. It's hyper clean, sterile, and it gives it's really, really well done. I really enjoyed it. I actually gave this out of 10, because again, this is just the mini series of episodes, not entirely the entire series, but I gave this a 10 out of 10 for these 3 episodes, because I got the opportunity to watch these all 3 back to back. That's how we've been doing our recording schedule when things don't go wrong, is I'll watch 3 episodes, record, watch the next 3 immediately, and then record. And so that's what I did. We recorded our last episode for the Aldhani heist, and I immediately watched all 3 together, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. I love everything that just happened. Huge fan. Loved it. Loved the build up on this mini arc.
Yeah, I give it an 8.5 out of 10, which is really good for me. I basically won't give anything a 10. 9 is as high as I'll go. So I'm basically saying it's nearly perfect in my eyes. I think the highest thing I give is Gladiator is a 9.5.
Russell Crowe does a really good job in Gladiator, so that is a good one. Next thing we'll go into is kind of like our top 3 moments. Now we got to talk about this a little bit already, so we're re-recording this, so I'm gonna try to bring the same enthusiasm that I did earlier. Obviously, my favorite moment in this, and there was a lot of emotions that went on with this, and you've got some of these highlighted as well, so I'm really excited to hear you go over these. But like the jailbreak was my favorite moment. That whole like second half of the episode, and it was a little bit more of a drawn out process. I like that they didn't save the jailbreak until like the last 5 minutes of the episode. It took about 20 to 25 minutes, I think, of actual episode time of them getting in, actually going through the steps, and not just being like, hey, we killed a few guards, now we're free. It was a little bit of a process, and you had to see because all of these prison factories were segregated so much, so they kept all the prisons in their own little bubbles, that they really were trying to like get all of the floors on the same business, and so they had to get themselves out, and then they had a lot of people to worry about. So I really, really liked that, and there was just some really, really compelling dialogue to go through. So like when Kino is going through his speech and Cassian's like, seriously, like, dude, like his first attempt at his speech was like bad, and he's a commander, right? He's been commanding people the whole time. Cassian's like, dude, you can do better. And you're like, all right, this is about to get good. Really loved that. What else? The whole chant always gets me fired up. I'm like, the whole one way out, I'm like, yep, I'm down for this. I'm super okay with this. This is awesome. And then even Kino's last sentence, like, I can't swim. Like, you're like, oh no, like that just like kind of breaks your heart a little bit, because you start off not liking this character, and then you very quickly, like, you're like, okay, once he gets turned to the cause, you're like, yes, he's on our side now. And then immediately like, okay, nope.
Well, and that's, I think, why we see him kind of choke when he gives that inspirational rallying call over the microphone, is because he's also wrestling with his own morality, because he knows that it's a facility in the water. He knows he's got nowhere to go, and he really wrestles with his own morality and really has to like stick to his guns, and he thinks this is the right thing to do, and it means that I'm probably not going to get out of here alive.
Yep, but he does it for everybody else. He does it
for everyone else.
Yeah, he really shows up, which I really liked.
And we don't know what happens to him. We don't see him jump. So it's very possible that he was left behind on the facility and he just didn't jump, and he was left to the mercy of the Imperials that ended up reinforcing the facility, which the Imperials rallied relatively quickly. I mean, we see in the next episodes Melshi and Cassian immediately being chased. Like, just because they jumped, they were not in the clear, and it was. I think we're going to be really heartbroken when we hear the percentage, if we ever do, of people who actually escaped. It's going to be pretty low. It
is going to be pretty low, because you probably assume that some of them died in the water. That's a really long drop, and if you don't land right, if you think about it, how far they're going down, like if you're not, like if somebody like is falling and tumbling and they don't right themselves correctly in the air, like if they land more flat or on their stomach or their back, like they could have like died, because landing on water from that high is like landing on concrete. So if they're not like pointing their toes properly or like keeping their legs together, poor dudes, like you're like there just leaves a lot of room for things to go wrong, especially when you're hitting water that hard. Anything can happen, especially since you've got such a wide range of people as well. Like imagine if Olaf had to jump out. You're like, he would not have made it. That would have been really bad.
R.I.P. Olaf.
R.I.P. Olaf. The death of Olaf was really the catalyst that set this all over, because then the doctor comes in and he's like trying to be cool, and like, but Cassian is basically interrogating him while he's doing this because he's trying to get information out. And this doctor's like, hey, by the way, once you get out, they're just going to put you in a different floor. And if you tell anyone about it, we're just going to kill everybody. Which is exactly what happened, which everyone is like freaking out, and they're trying to like pass the signs along and things like that. And it was just, it was really moving. Loved how all of that went down.
Well, I think what they were doing is they were transferring them to different prisons entirely, not just to different floors. And I think that was their mistake, is they accidentally took a prisoner from, I think, either who had just been on a different floor and moved into a different floor as his like outtake, and or excuse me, he came from a different prison after like already being at this prison, so this would have been like his minimum third prison stay.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, there's no getting out. And he told, I mean, he may have already known that, but he told everyone, he's like, I've been here before. And they were like, oh, Lord. And they just killed the whole floor, which, again, leads me back to the people who tried to escape. I just don't think they made it. I think the Imperials would have slaughtered a lot of them.
Yeah.
Which is hard. It's... You want them to escape, but seeing them probably die is also hard.
Yeah, for sure. Another one of my favorite moments in this is a lot of like the different ISB interactions we have. Mm-hmm. I love Miro's interaction with the ISB director. I just think he has some really, really fascinating dialogue, and it just gives you an insight to how the Empire operates in their organizations, and it kind of solidifies the ISB. It gives a little bit of background to the consolidation of power with the ISB, because we see these agents. Agent Callus is a good one, for example, from Star Wars Rebels. They have a lot of power, and so seeing kind of how that power comes to manifest itself, I thought was really, really interesting.
Yeah, we're really seeing the depth and the power of the ISB. I mean, you can't have an empire without a secret police, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Somebody's got to
police.
Yeah, somebody's got to keep everything together. So,
the secret part is that you don't know what they're going to do with you, not that they don't exist.
Yeah, exactly. I think probably sorry, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead. I'll tell you.
I think my third favorite moment was actually the interrogation of Bix, because this was Star Wars playing up its hand a little bit without ruining its rating. And Star Wars is known for not swearing very much, keeping the blood and gore very, very minimal. There's very, very little of it. And they did a really, really good job at implying a lot of like intense like sound torture with like the I can't remember what planet it is, but the planet the Imperials are visiting, they slaughter a bunch of creatures, and they happen to be recording everything, and then the guys who were listening to the recording were found dead. So they were like, hey, we can use this for nefarious purposes, and then they start playing that out, and you see how that affects Bix, but it's all implied, and you never get to actually hear the sound, and I think that's just a really cool piece of lore, but also really kind of elevates the evil of the Empire while staying within the rating limitations of Star Wars as the franchise.
Yeah, moving on to psychological torture and the torture of Bix, it's disturbing, and they do a good job of capturing that, of just how evil the Empire can be, and the cinematography of that scene actually matches the torture scene of Leia. It has the same shot of from the camera's perspective, like she's getting tortured and the door closes and the camera pans down and then to the left and then up, and you see an Imperial walking away as the shot pans up. Those shots are directly mimicked both in A New Hope and this episode of Andor, which is really cool. But again, it's building off of something we only saw a little bit of in the original movies, and I think that's what I've really liked about Rogue One and Andor, is it's not retconning the old movies, which I think are still the gold standard of Star Wars for being, especially with how old they are. You'll definitely see that in at least my ratings when we do the Star Wars tier list in the next episode. The original trilogy is the best trilogy.
Yeah.
But it really builds off of that, and it really just builds off of really the core of what Star Wars fans love.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Our next kind of segment that we were going to go into was we've been doing it since the first season is over at this point. A lot of the stuff that we were going to go through with like questions and things that's happening. I mean, I think it's kind of nice that we're in an era of speculation now because the season's done and we're not going to immediately get our questions answered in the next week. So now we get to start speculating on what's going to happen in season 2. So I'm going to kind of spitball a couple of things to you really quick, and I want to see what you think about it. But my feed...
Yeah, spit at me.
Gross. Something that has been infiltrating my feed quite a bit is the theory that Luthen is a Jedi. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of people have had this thought, and I'm definitely on the same wavelength. Like around right at the beginning-ish, when he starts like he brings out that kyber crystal, and the thing I noticed is that the kyber crystal, I believe it's blue.
It is, yeah.
The kyber crystal that
Sky Kyber, as it's called.
I think that's a little bit of a cover. But what I think it actually might be is the crystal from Luthen's lightsaber when he was a Padawan. I don't think he's going to be quite if he's a Jedi, I don't think he's going to be quite at the level of like Cal Kestis, who is a pretty strong Jedi, all things considered. But Luthen may not be a very powerful Jedi. And remember, Anakin, and then I should say Lord Vader, he killed hundreds of Jedi in his tenure. Like, not all Jedi are the same power level, and it just goes to show, especially people like Cal Kestis and the Inquisitors and things like that. We see Cal Kestis. The only thing they can do when they see people like Vader is run, and we see that in Rebels as well. Like they barely escape by the skin of their teeth. They're no match for Vader. All they can do is just escape.
Yeah. I've seen a few people who've broken down some of the Easter eggs that's in Luthen's shop, because there's some Jedi holocrons in his shop. If you go scene by or frame by frame, and that's kind of like a lot of people are saying, oh, that's a big getaway, but he has a Jedi and a Sith holocron, so he has the pyramid shaped one and the cube shaped one, and they're big.
They're really big.
That actually brings me into another point: is do you notice how big the Sky Kyber crystal is that he gives to Cassian? It's huge.
It's kind of large.
So my opinion is I think it's too big from at least what we see, especially like when you get in up close and personal with like lightsaber making in the episode where Ahsoka has to escort all those Padawans in the Jedi ship, for example, in the episode after all of the Padawans or the younglings.
This is in the Clone Wars.
In the Clone Wars series, yeah. You see all their crystals and they're small.
They're tiny. And
so my thought is, I think him knowing where to get the crystal points to that he's a Jedi. I don't think it's his lightsaber, unless it would potentially be like the lightsaber or the kyber crystal to a double-bladed lightsaber. But to my knowledge, I don't know if there's a canonical reason that a double-bladed lightsaber needs a bigger kyber crystal, if that makes sense.
I think they usually have two small ones. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if that's canon or not. That's speculation. But Luthen's speech in the last 3 episodes, which I don't really want to address very much in this episode, but if you are thinking that Luthen used to be a Jedi, his speech makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that he says that, like, if you put the context of him being a Jedi, it does bring in a lot more context. You're like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, for sure. So, we will be watching Luthen with great interest.
Absolutely.
It's not a novel idea for sure, but because like half of the people who watch the show are like, that could be. Although, I kind of hope I'm wrong, because it's really nice to see non-Force users make such a huge impact in the galaxy.
Absolutely. And that's something that I pointed out in one of my when we did our first recording. I was like, oh my gosh, I actually really like that we just get like raw Star Wars universe lore without having Jedis, because the Jedis are like the Deus Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina. Two machines. No, Deus Ex Machina. I can never say that right. And they just fix everything, right? Because they're the main protagonists. They're like they're space wizards, so they can do anything. I mean, the only limit to Jedi powers is essentially your own imagination, because you do have that really wide range of like power leveling between Jedi. So you're like, oh, they can just kind of like do anything. And I'm really excited that we get to see so much happen potentially without the use of the Force. And I would actually I would enjoy it if Luthen wasn't a Jedi, or if he was considered to be cut off from the Force. We see that in one of Cal Kestis's board mates. I think the lady that is with him, isn't she cut off from the Force, the pilot? And that would be a good way.
I'm so sorry.
I don't remember either, but if Luthen cuts himself off from the Force to avoid detection, I think that would be good, because he has all of the knowledge of the Jedi without the practical use of the Force. And I think that would be much better, because then he's ordinary in that sense that he doesn't get superpowers, but he's extraordinary in his application of knowledge of the Force. So that's kind of what I hope, is he's used to be a Jedi, but he's cut off from the Force. Because how are you going to survive on Coruscant if you're a Force user? Like, Vader's 3 doors down, you know? Like,
yeah.
Oof. And the Emperor's like right over there. I'm like, I feel like Coruscant would be the worst place for a Jedi.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a great idea, even with the confounding factors of the Jedi Temple being there, the slaughter of the Jedi, which probably left a huge mark in the dark side, and the fact that the Jedi Temple was built on a dark side monument. Like, that's canon. It's in, they outright say it in the High Republic novels. So, you know,
I just started reading the first High Republic novel, and I'm really excited about it. Light of the Jedi starts off intense.
It's very good.
Like,
it's very good. I really like it.
I think I'm like only 6 chapters in. The chapters are really short, but literally the first chapter, you're like, is this the main character? And everybody dies. You're just like, what? Like, you just learned about this like new ship captain who has all of these like refugees and stuff, and you're just like, oh no. So I'm really excited to see what happens in that book. But actually, that would be a great podcast episode in the future, is talking about what happens more in the High Republic. So,
yeah, and everything you need to know about the High Republic would be really fun. I have most of the books on file, so I can send them to you at some point.
I would definitely take those for sure. My next prediction, that is a little bit more not mainstream, right? Because everyone is kind of like, oh yeah, Luthen's a Jedi. I think one of my predictions is that we're actually going to see a greater involvement with Saw Gerrera. I think we might even be able to get to see potentially how this plays out, because I'm not entirely sure where all the events and stuff play out, but I would love to see some different campaigns and stuff from Saw Gerrera. I think he's a really compelling character, and I think we're going to be able to get to see some more of him in season 2.
Agreed. I haven't thought about it at all, but I think that would be really interesting, because we see in Rogue One that Cassian really kind of laments the trajectory of his life, even in the rebellion, because he's like, I've had to basically give up my life and do these awful things. And that's why we kind of see him try to have this like redemption moment when he helps out Jyn Erso go to Scarif, is because he's like, I have a debt to pay, even though I think my motivations are right. Like, I've not lived a good life.
Which, again, we're hopefully going to get to see, because if he's claiming to do all these terrible things in the name of good, in the name of justice, I'm like, I would like to see these, and let's get them on film, please.
Yeah, and who better to do awful things with than Saw?
Yeah, exactly. I am predicting that we're going to see much more Jedi involvement in season 2. I think it's like an itch that the writers can't help but scratch. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to avoid being like, maybe we sprinkle in some Ahsoka, or like, I would love to see some video game characters come into play. I would love to see characters like Starkiller become canon. I don't know if is Fallen Order considered canon. That's a great question.
Yes, Fallen Order is canon.
Cool. So if Star Wars games are also in canon, like I would love to see like maybe a minor appearance of somebody who plays Cal Kestis. I think that would be awesome. And just getting to like not even necessarily revolving the entire series around them, because we see that happen quite a bit in Mando. Half of the reason of like half the season 2 of Mando is just introducing Boba Fett so he can get his own series, which then plays back into Mando, and he's a huge character there. And I'm like, you guys should have just made this one series. Anyway, that's a rant I won't go on. But I'm hoping that
we'll go on that rant
eventually. Yeah. But I'm hoping we can get some more involvement with some of those like bigger name characters. Like I would love to see like maybe Luthen is like interacting with one of his rebel cells and he's like, oh, I need a smuggler to do something, and he like hands a random package off to like Han Solo, and we see him enter in for a little bit and then just like casually leave. Like, you know, I think that'd be really cool to like involve some of those characters, but more as like really brief moments just for fun. But I think there's going to be a lot more Jedi involvement in season 2, because again, I think it is an itch that the writers can't help but scratch.
I actually kind of disagree. I don't think there's going to be hardly any Force usage in the next season. So we'll have to see who's right.
We've covered all our bases. One of us is right. I'd be down with either. The writing has been incredible, so really, I don't necessarily care too much about being right. I feel actually bad for the writers because they just wrote a really some of the best Star Wars content ever, and when now everyone is going to expect it from season 2, and I'm like, oh, they are going to have a tough time. So hopefully they've got their A game coming in.
Yeah, I hope so. And specifically my predictions for season 2, we are not going to see any light side Force users get pretty much any screen time. We're not going to see Caleb Doom / Kanan Jarrus. We're not going to see Ahsoka. We're not going to see Cal Kestis. We're not going to see any light side users. We're not going to see Kenobi. I also don't think we're going to see Darth Vader at all.
I'd be okay with that.
If we do, at the very least, we might hear about like some spooky tales of Vader, and I think that will be it. We're not going to see the Emperor, and we're not even going to see the Inquisitors. Nope, nothing. Because they're hunting Jedi, not rebels.
I was going to say, yeah, because if there's no Jedi around, then the Inquisitors have no reason to be there.
If we see any mention of the Jedi in the main story, other than just like building the world, it's going to be Luthen admitting that he was a Jedi. That's it. We're not going to see him use the Force. That's it.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool.
We shall see.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be disappointed if we do see a bunch of Force users, because the Force is awesome. So.
Absolutely. I say we go into our conclusion really quick. Just because we're kind of sitting at about the 40-minute mark right now, so this is a pretty good podcast length right now, and because we're planning on getting into more episodes, I just say we just keep cranking these out. How does that sound with you?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, guys, so we are going to just go through and conclude this episode really quick, because we've got more Star Wars stuff to talk about in our next couple episodes, so we're going to get those recorded for you guys as well. Both of us have finished out the season, so we're going to be doing another Andor review, kind of capping out the whole season, coming up in probably a few weeks as well, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. We've got some other... I know both of us have rewatched, I think, every single episode for this, which is kind of an uncommon thing. And I'm really excited to talk about it with everyone. We did want to go over just a few news items as well, because that's kind of what we finish out our episodes with. And at the time of this recording, Dark Tide for Warhammer 40,000, so if we're taking a step out of the Star Wars realm into a different fandom that we truly love, Dark Tide just got released. It is on Game Pass PC, so if you have that, make sure you guys download that. It's really fun. I just downloaded it last night before this recording, and it is December, what is it? It's December 3rd? It's December 3rd, and it came out on the 30th, so just a few days ago. I got it downloaded. I've got my graphics all set up so I can hopefully run it, and it doesn't look too bad. The real question is can I play Dark Tide and stream it at the same time? We'll see. In other news, we also got a little bit of a buff for the World Eaters. If you guys haven't yet, Auspex Tactics on YouTube is a fantastic place to stay up with Warhammer news, especially when it comes to tabletop gaming. He's a great resource, really clear, concise, and very well spoken when he's going through his review. So I highly recommend going through his videos and looking at it, because he's like right on it every single time. He's super quick on all of that. In movie news, we've got Avatar: The Way of Water coming out. Not super hyped for this myself. I know we had talked about that a little bit in our first pre-recording that had to get trashed, but both of us are kind of sitting in and saying, yep, it's going to happen. It is what it is. We're probably both going to see it. Will it match the hype of episode 1? Probably not. And that's kind of what I've got going on so far.
I don't think I have anything else to add other than Dark Tide is awesome. It's so fun.
I've enjoyed it so far as well. I just finished the prelude and like character building and stuff like that. I'm just really excited to have a new game that I can play on the PC that actually runs on my machine, and I can get achievements. I'm actually thinking of potentially doing a YouTube series playing through Dark Tide and getting all the achievements. So we'll see.
That would be so fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, so we'll see on that. That could even be a Talk Tatooine like exclusive, who knows, but it really just depends on how well my machine can run, because if I can't stream it, then I'll have to do it on the side as recording, and we all know how much I love editing like 5 different projects while working full-time as well. But really, we just
do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but that's okay, because we do it all for you guys. So make sure, if you guys are enjoying these episodes, that you guys take the time to listen to all of our shorts and our videos and our audio, all of that fun stuff. That is the best way to support us right now. So thank you guys so much for everyone who has listened in. If you want to hear more on a specific topic, you guys can follow us at Talk Tatooine on Twitter. Just send us a tweet. We would love to hear about it, because we want to go through the topics you guys want to hear about. You guys are going to catch most of our content out here on YouTube at Talk About Tatooine. You can also find us on Anchor, Spotify, and other podcast platforms at Talk About Tatooine as well, in just audio versions. So we look forward to hearing from you guys, and until next time, may the Force be with you.
Close your eyes.